If you look at the loom shot and just zoom in on it, you don't even have to like go into like macro level. It's just, you just put it on full screen and you see that it's, I don't know, it's just somebody with like a very shaky hand applied the loom. It's just all over the place. It's like I did it on like half of the indices, and it is really bad. It's like sweatshop level bad.
You know what I love? From the very beginning of the internet to now, the internet's best role is to take someone else's work, look at it with a fine comb, and tear it apart.
No, you don't have to look at it with a fine comb. That's the problem. You could see this from like, even if you have like bad near sight vision, you could see it. It's bad. It's so bad. If all the indices be like this, it would be like, nobody would buy one of these.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly, the show that reaches parts that other shows just don't reach. It's as simple as that. Ariel, what parts have been reached this week in the world of watches for you?
Wow, that's it's so deep and penetrating. Today, I'm thinking about how we had to go deep into the bowels of the Queen Mary boat to get more tables.
Right,
no,
okay.
It was, we had so many
scenes.
people there yesterday. There wasn't enough chairs and tables. And we kept having to ask the people, like, hey, could you get more? And it was this whole hilarious debacle of union labor, being on break, not being able to find where the things are.
See, it's just not a problem in this country. You want some tables and chairs, you just go get some tables and chairs. David, if you wanted some tables and chairs, some extra tables and chairs in a restaurant, would you have to go through 3 layers of union labor to get them?
No, I think you could just get some tables and chairs, but admittedly, we don't have too many ocean liners on the Danube.
The Danube's not famous for its famous old liners that are moored up. What can you do? What can you actually promote Hungary for us? What can you actually do on the Danube?
Wow.
And is it blue?
It is blue. Sometimes it's green. It's actually not the river's fault. It's whatever happens in the sky and with the light and the sun and whatever. But sometimes it's gross and green, and sometimes it's turquoise blue, and it has lots of ships on it that have lots of chairs and tables on them. So, whoever is missing their chairs and whatever on the Queen Mary, they can just jump on any number of flights, maybe 2 or 3 flights, land in Budapest and just sit on Danube and in tremendous comfort.
You guys are so sweet to want to help retroactively. Thank you.
We'll bring our own chairs. It's like
That's what we should start saying to the watch events. Bring your own seating. Bring your. The beverages will be included. I love how there's like an endless amount of available alcohol for watch events, but that's about it.
And still water,
but no chairs.
It's just funny. Like, what do we do in a world where not everybody wants champagne?
There is something wonderful about going to an event and being the most comfortable person at it, like especially an outdoor event, and you actually are the one that remembers to bring a chair so that you can sit down and enjoy whatever's going on. There's something wonderful about having your own throne with you.
Is it inflatable? I imagine it'd be fun to sit there with a hand pump and be inflating your own throne as everyone looks increasingly envious as your throne grows in size.
What would be the most inappropriate form of seating to bring to a watch event? I'm thinking beanbag, because it would rustle.
Yes, that's cool.
Oh no,
I wouldn't mind seating, because there's plenty of that. I could just bring one of these baseball hats that have like 2 beer cans, and you can just slip from them, just drink like hands-free drinking opportunity from a hat with a little fan to keep you cool. I think that would be it. And you could smuggle that in your bag and just put it on once you're in there.
People were on their best behavior. I need to make that very clear.
I noticed that you were also quite dapperly dressed.
Well, there's clients there, you know.
You thought, but you've given it some thought, Ariel. If anyone's not seen the photos, you need to go to Ariel's Instagram account.
Yes, thank you.
Looking very sharp.
I have, look, I mean, I can dress in diverse ways. I think it's clear I like to be comfortable. I don't have to be comfortable, but I like to be comfortable.
That's illegal in Europe.
Yes. As are restrooms and trash cans.
Yes. The comfort police comes and assesses your level of comfort. Just takes you away in the middle of the night.
How dare you have waist hair?
Yeah. Go be comfortable somewhere else.
At least we have pavements. That's all I'm saying. There's somewhere safe for
You
you to
do have
walk.
that. So,
Yes,
what?
we do
We
have
do
pavements.
going
Great.
first. Right, anyway, okay, come on, let's move on. I know it was my fault for going down this route, but let's
You
move
did
on.
go down this route. Nothing about the heritage and the cool watches there. They brought some really impressive stuff out from the archives, but the seating arrangement, this is very important.
That's right. Longines watches, great. Seating chart, absolute nonsense. Must do better. 9 out of 10 for the watches, 1 out of 10 for the seating plan.
No, it was great. Look, there was more than 100 seats available for people, but it was a very popular event. It was excellent. The room was great. The Queen Mary was a perfect venue for it, and it was really the greatest place to bring out some of these historic watches, because a lot of them could have ostensibly been worn by people who would have been traveling on this boat. That was really, really cool, actually. What I thought was the most interesting for timepiece universe perspective was, here's all these people who really didn't know too much about Longines and what it had done historically, and were, I think, impressed, a bit overwhelmed, of course, but there was this presentation that Daniel Hoog had, and he's the director or the head of their brand and heritage. And it's just like, Longines invented this, Longines did this, Longines was part of this important thing. And it's, in a lot of ways, not the same, but similarly impressive to maybe a Rolex or Omega. And I think that those are ones, if you know the history, like, wow, they've done a bunch of cool stuff. Well, so is Longines.
Yeah, I think a number of people point out just how impressive their back catalogue is, and to a certain extent how little they actually regularly lean into it. So you do, however, make the event sound like it was a giant game of musical chairs. There was 200 people there, but only 100 chairs.
No, they brought, look, it was a very full event, but everyone was able to have a good time. We were in a wonderful room. Most people were able to sit down. I'm only joking because I was on stage the entire time, and I'm looking around. I was like, wow, this is a very full hall. Some people were standing in the back.
What I really want a seat. That's what you're standing up there.
No, I was just like, if I was going to get, so I was able to, at the end when people were leaving, find a seat for myself to actually eat some food, which was nice. But it was just so good to see such a successful event, and Longines was happy. Cool. The retailer Benbridge, which we also did it with, they were very happy. And what's interesting is they set up a display in the back. They made a mini store. So they brought like a bunch of Longines watches and displays, and they were selling a bunch of watches in the back. And I guess the reason that we brought this up to begin with was as a testimonial of how important it is to have a good venue. We've all been to cool watch events that are at an interesting venue, which adds character and atmosphere and flavor and just sort of a good context to enjoy things. And then we've been to, events at a store where you're just awkwardly, staring at other watch dudes, and you're like, all right, what do I do here? And it makes a really big difference. And yesterday's event, so many things went well. The venue, the people, the watches, the brands, it all works so well. Plus, they were able to actually sell watches, of course, is really important to the retailer. So there's a lot of lessons that we learned there, and I'm looking forward to, of course, doing that. I mean, I think most of aBlogtoWatch events are good. I hope that because we don't do so many of them, they're good. A lot of people are like, oh, you should do more events. I'm like, I don't know, should we do more events? Do you guys want to go schmooze with people every couple of days? It's a lot.
As long as there's chairs, I'm happy. I do think they should introduce a new category for all events we go to. I'm especially thinking of Watches and Wonders. We should judge all the watches, but we should also judge the quantity and quality of seating available.
Oh, really? Do you want you want to be like a concert venue? You want to have like assigned seating? Like, I will not show up unless I know where I'm seating and what my view is going to be.
Unless my name is on the back of the seat at the Rolex boutique, at the Rolex booth at Watches and Wonders, I will not attend. Yeah, right, okay. David, let's move this on. We've gone from lack of comfort, or it was obviously very comfortable, but we jest about seating to an article you've just penned. I guess I hate thick watches now.
Yes.
So when did you love them? Why have you fallen out of love with them?
It's not that I love them. It's more that I just didn't mind them. I could justify them being thick because they were funky, and they the trend were big watches getting bigger, 42, 44, 45, 46, and so on. And those watches looked a-okay. At 15, 16 millimeters thick. there was all this room for all these crazy complications and stuff, and cool indications and whatever else. And that was basically what the 2000s and the teens were all about, right? And then now the watches are getting smaller in terms of diameter, but oftentimes they're not getting any smaller in terms of thickness. And I chose just a few examples, to illustrate my point in this article, in this grinding gears column. And even some of these, especially this featured image that you scroll down further and you can see it again. It's a chronograph that has this super tall sidewall or profile of the case in between the lugs, and the strap joins the lugs down low, and then you have all this case that you're looking at that's, at least it's brushed, but it's quite unsightly. And my point is that it's just, I think it's over, at least for me, when it comes to thick watches, because I realized this pattern as I was looking at watches that I used to like, or new propositions that I thought I would like, and I would look at them and I would say, well, this is cool, but it's too thick. And I felt like I can't justify neither the price nor the complications and whatever else if it comes in an ungainly and, most of the time uncomfortable to wear package. So that's how I ended up with this proposition that I guess I hate thick watches now.
I have to add something here, and David, help me reconcile this. Most watchmakers, when they're engineering a case, they're clearly not all successful, but they go into it thinking, I'm going to make this as thin as I can, right? They don't have too much extra. Oftentimes the dial's a lot. Why do you think that there is too much thickness for your taste, despite the fact that, again, as you know, they genuinely try to make them as thin as they can?
That's just because they try, it doesn't mean that they succeed, right? It's I feel like, the Daytona works because it's less than 12 millimeters thick. And I love it for that. It's, it never looks or appears cumbersome. A Longines, flyback, whatever, with 17 millimeters, I look at it and I'm like, it's a 6,000 meter dive watch. And sure, it offers like a flyback or something, that's cool, but still, it's like 40% thicker. It's just, there's so much watch in terms of volume, and that hinders wearability and comfort. I bang it everywhere against the table, against like whatever. It's just, it wobbles around the wrist. I would actually be, of course, willing to see some compromises. Maybe I don't need a date. Maybe I don't even need, self-winding. Sure. Just don't give me a 17 millimeter watch with a straight face and say that this is the best we can do, because it's not supposed to be that. A lot of the times, if they tried, I think some of them would have abandoned the 7750 architecture long ago. It's been around for half a century now, and they are still milking it. And they are like, oh, but we added a column wheel. I don't care. It was a perfectly well-functioning cam-actuated chronograph for 50 years, and now it has a column wheel, but it's still 17 millimeters thick. It's just too thick for what it is, at least, from what I can.
Would you forgive a watch if it was particularly lightweight or had a particular level of durability that you could respect?
Sure. I mean, most G-Shocks, perfectly fit the description. They are light and they are very durable and they are thick as hell, but I still like, most of them. But they are comfy to wear. But a lot of these, like, thick steel watches, sometimes even in titanium, it also is a matter of how the straps and the bracelets are integrated into the design. But yeah, sure, compromises.
So I'm gonna be a psychologist here. Can I be a psychologist here?
That's right.
So I hear something a little bit different, not vastly different, but I think that David is just acknowledging the tastes he's always had. I don't think anything's changing about David's tastes. I've known him for a long time. I've seen the watches he likes the most. David's never really liked very large watches to begin with, but in the process of reviewing watches and meeting with brands, especially the high complications, it is true that a lot of the watches that David is asked to wear and to review and to just have his opinion on are larger than he wants to wear. And so what I'm sort of hearing is David just being, you know what, I'm really sick of wearing all these watches that aren't the size I want. I'd love to wear more watches that are my particular preference. Because it's not just your anatomy, it's your lifestyle. You wear long sleeves a lot. That's, that makes it less pleasant to wear large watches than someone in a warmer environment who wears short sleeves a lot. You know what I mean? Again, it depends on the weather, but there's so much personal preference here. So what I hear is a watch journalist who's basically saying to watch brands like, there's these really great packages, like size packages, like the size of a Daytona. Like, I don't care how crazy you make your watch, but could it fit more or less this profile? Because that's a good size and thickness and overall thing. Like, can you model your shape within that? Can you shove it in there somehow? That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. I think it's going to be very interesting next 10 years, and it's one of the new frontiers for watchmaking to make these already very small machines even smaller and more compact. And when you said that they try to make these as small as possible, I honestly am not sure. I really am not sure if whoever went.
You hear him say it too. I mean, that I'm not making that up.
No. Sometimes I hear them, but whoever designed the 17 millimeter thick Longines, I don't think they had too many meetings on thickness. It's so thick, it just happened to be 17 millimeters.
Okay, I was wearing this exact watch yesterday, so I know the exact thing you're talking about. When I saw the tech specs, I was like, oh my god, 17, and a lot of it is hidden in the design. First of all, there's the domed crystal, and that's like 2 millimeters right there. Then there's a sort of rounded case back, they do that. So like it wears like a 14, 15 millimeter. Then on the NATO, which I actually had it on, it's way thicker. On the bracelet, it's better.
That doesn't help. Put it in a freaking NATO.
Yeah. On the NATO, it's like, okay. I mean, it's thick, but it's like, if you have this history of tool watches, there's something friendly. It's so legible. It's sort of nice and tactile in the hand. It definitely could be thinner, but it would be a different sales proposition. Plus, you make a really good point about the architecture. Rolex waited until the year 2000, which is funny given how old they are, to come out with their like decently sized chronograph. Like nobody seems to want to mass produce a chronograph with tiny parts. Like they're all very, very expensive,
yes.
or made in small quantities. Like I can't explain why. A lot of it has to do with the size tolerances, probably the complexity of assembly, but there's like a very real thing stopping the industry from making thinner chronographs. If that wasn't a thing and someone was able to overcome that and make, if they had a movement that was cost about the same as the 7750 to buy as a third party, that was half the thickness was a chronograph, it'd go crazy popular. But like, I just don't know how close we are to something like that.
I mean, the 2892 A2 is like 6.1 millimeters or something like that.
That's a compromised chronograph, and everyone knows it.
Yeah, but at least it's 6 millimeters. So it's like, that's something. I'm not sure how thick.
Yeah,
like the B01 one is big. 28.
Look, another thing which is an issue is the position of the registers with the 28 94 that you're talking about. The registers are relatively close in, so with these larger diameter movements, the registers can be further out, which looks better on the larger dials. Because remember, the 7750 generation movements and stuff like that, they were meant for smaller watches. That happens to be a larger one, but there's, again, it is there are a lot of technical reasons why it can't be done. But David's absolutely correct, that there's this huge opening in the market for more complicated watches that are a smaller profile that aren't, Audemars Piguet expensive.
But I mean, you say that there's an opening in the market. The one thing that watch companies are normally good at is filling in the openings in the market. Is the fact that they haven't, and that a nice, thin, reasonably priced chronograph doesn't really exist, mean that actually there isn't that much demand? When push comes to shove, people are prepared to put up with the extra thickness?
I don't believe that for a second, because the chronograph is the most popular complication, right? If you look at sales, and I'm not talking about time or date, that don't really count that, but just by volume, the chronograph wins. And it's not because anyone uses it, it's because it's good looking. So you see all these 3-hand automatics coming out on the market because there's demand for it, but it's also something that they can industrialize. Assembling a chronograph and having it work is hard. It's not easy to do. It's a lot more parts, and the level of precision you need to put the stuff together is just different than a 3-hand automatic. So I completely believe that just no one's wanted to accept that challenge. And they're like, well, because again, whoever did it would have to spend millions on the R&D and then set up the whole production line. It'd be like a decade before they could charge anything near what they would want to charge for volume discounts. And, does Rolex want to, like Kanisi, for example, through Tudor, do they want to make a competitor to the, the 4135 or whatever the name right now of the Daytona movements is? Is it up to the 35 now? I think they stepped it up from the 30.
4131.
Oh, it's the 31. That's right. I don't remember. Did they go up by one number or five? You never know.
Yeah, they went up with just one, and I have to correct myself because I said 2892, but it's 2894-2. So anyone listening and who's an fan,
I said it later, the 2894.
Okay.
Keep your complaints to yourselves.
Yeah.
So are we actually saying here that the most efficiently designed mass market produced chronograph movement is the one contained in the Rolex Daytona? And that actually, if they just made that available in the same way that 7750 is available for mass purchase, then that would be the movement everyone would be after.
Look at what Tudor did. Tudor needed a chronograph for the Black Bay, and they went to Breitling.
Yeah, that was a good move. But if you made, like, sometimes you can make some stuff, available, and sometimes patents expire and whatever else, and you can make a 7750 in your basement, and you cannot call it a 7750 maybe, but you can make it. It's out there. Anyone can make.
Anyone's allowed to make a 7750. Architecture. David's correct.
Exactly.
So why are they not? Why is no one remaking the Daytona
because
movement?
It's, and this is what I was going to say, is because there are certain components in it that require special manufacturing technologies, like UV Liga, and just a number of components are shaped and manufactured in a way that few out there have the capacity to manufacture. And once you can make parts like this, you will make your own once you have invested quite so much into manufacturing.
It changes every couple of years, so I just want to add this, but Rolex, as of a couple of years ago, still didn't make every single component in the Daytona's movement. There's still a couple of little micro components that others make. Same thing with Patek Philippe, for example, that there's some certain components in their chronographs that others make. This is not necessarily an uncommon thing, and so David's absolutely right. Anyone would need to take this on, would have to be able to make all these parts, and there'll be resistance out there in the market, as is the case. So my belief is not that there isn't demand for it, but the cost to develop and set up in the industrialization to produce a competitively priced chronograph movement is overwhelming, probably.
Okay, so weird question. The super clones that you get for Rolex Daytonas, what movement's in them?
Crap.
Like people. I mean, is it just string? I assume that these super clones, the movements actually work, and that they're the right size. They are the same size as Rolex Daytonas. So, what is the cheats market?
That's a good question. I have very little experience with fake Daytonas per se. I know they exist. My understanding is that one of the downsides of the fake movements is they work well for a small amount of time and then they go bad.
Exactly.
The movements probably work for a little while. We've seen the inside of chronographs. There's not only small parts, but there are these weird bendy shapes and things like that. And my suspicion is they'll just sort of bend or wear out very quickly over time. So I again, just to make a look-alike metal part isn't the issue. It's one that is able to survive operation after operation. So my suspicion is after a couple of weeks or months, they just start to gum up inside or not work.
Yeah, in the same way how many could cost and maybe put together like a V10 engine, but it would not work. It would not rev to 8,500. It would just fall apart. It would look like it, but the fact that it works like that and is durable is a completely other know-how. And I've seen some of these comparison videos with beautiful macro shots on these different movements actually, and super fake, quote unquote, super fake Daytona movements, and a lot of the parts are shaped like that, yes, as they are on the original, and they are getting closer and closer in terms of style and finishing and whatever, but they are still incredibly dirty. The way that they are put together is super sloppy. It's just, the whole thing is, you look at it and it's just a terrible movement. The shapes of the different components in that terrible movement are the shape of a Daytona movement, but the movement is still disgusting in every single way you can think of for a movement to be that. So it's not going to last. Why would you want
David's
something like
disgusted.
that?
He's disgusted with these movements.
I'm appalled.
I can feel it coming through the Zoom chat.
It's like you sneezed on a movement and then you put it together anyway.
I suppose this is about the watches that do manage to survive, because we can have a quick look at an article Ariel penned, the top 10 luxury watches. I think the most remarkable thing about this article is that Ariel's put together a top 10, but we'll save that for another day. The top 10 luxury watches sold on eBay in the first half of 2023. Ariel, any surprises?
That's a good question. There's definitely some interesting things to learn here in terms of surprises. None of the brands are surprising, right? Like what we tried to do here is figure out what were the most popular models that were sold. And
this information, to be clear, is not just you making up. You've spoken to eBay and got this information from them.
Yes.
It's not that you've gone on and just kind of surfed to try and discern the top models. This is actually official statistics.
Yes, this has been provided by them. Of course, we had the idea for this series, and they had to acquire this data and provide it to us. And look, I always, when it comes to these top 10 lists, I always worry. It's like, the people who are represented there aren't happy, and then everyone else like, wait a minute, but my watch is popular. Well, here it's nobody's opinion. This is just what does well. So you have all the top 10 watches are between 6 brands, I believe: Audemars Piguet, Cartier, Omega, Rolex, Tag Heuer, and Tudor. Some of those are on the list once, some of them are on the list more. Cartier accounted for all the women's watches, and I think it was very interesting to me that there was entire consolidation there, right? Like, women's watches are popular on eBay. They represent about 30% of the market, which is similar to everywhere else. But what is very different about women's watches is that most women buyers are interested in a smaller number of watches, whereas the male watch interest tends to be a little bit more broad. So that's perfectly shown in here. Certain things like the Formula One from Tag Heuer, or the Royal Oak Offshore, or the specific Oyster Perpetual watch is being the Pelagos. Sometimes some of these watches are either so mainstream or so niche, and I'm like, I didn't know the mainstream was that into Pelagos. So I think what we see here is a very interesting mixture of what happens when mainstream interest and niche tastes collide, and how the mainstream can sometimes adopt. So the Pelagos for a long time was not a particularly popular Tudor watch. It was the Black Bay, and then the Pelagos, may has hit its stride because it's been, offered in titanium, of course, and Rolex finally came out with titanium at a much more expensive rate, and that might be the reason, right? There's the titanium Yachtmaster for 3 times the price, and then the Pelagos starts to look wonderful by comparison. That alone could contribute to this. So I'd love to know, some of the reasons why here. The only Omega on the list is the Seamaster 300.
The yaw on the master.
Yeah, and it's interesting, why specifically that one. But it's hard to say. So I think it should be humbling here as a watch enthusiast to sort of see what the mainstream likes and ask questions why. And I'd like to ask both of you if you have any particular thoughts on why any of these watches were on the list.
I'm surprised by the Pelagos, and I'm very positively surprised at that it's not the Black Bay 50 whatever, pick your random number. I always thought that the Pelagos is a superior watch to the Black Bay in a number of ways, so I'm happy to see it there. The Formula One is a great beginner's watch, a first watch for many, and I know that there are some people who collect them. So that's cool. Cartier, why is there 3 Cartiers? It's so weird that they can have like 3 in the top 10 list. The Seamaster 300, I fully understand. It's a great watch. A bit too thick though, but it's a great watch nevertheless. A bunch of Rolexes. The Royal Oak Offshore is a surprise as well. It's just the 3 Cartiers do a little bit sound kind of made up. It's like, what's a Bion Blue, a Panthère, and then what's the Cartier doing in the top 10? I don't know.
Is this, Ariel, based on numbers or revenue?
My belief is this is the number of times that watch had a transaction. So I don't think this is a revenue number. This is my understanding by volume. I was specifically wanted to have not the watches that were listed, but the watches that were actually sold. So remember, the watches that you'll see on eBay, that's just listing does not really count here. I wanted to know what's
Yeah.
actually being sold.
Yeah, so I mean, for a watch to go on eBay, there needs to be it's a bit more of a kind of thought out transaction than a store selling a new watch. Like there's a lot more supply and demand elements related to it. Somebody needs to have it and want to get rid of it. So on the one hand, you could say Tudor Pelagos, great, but also that means lots of folk want to get rid of their Tudor Pelagoses, unlike their Tudor Black Bays. Now, we know there's more Tudor Black Bays in the world than there are Tudor Pelagoses. But for Tudor Pelagos to appear on this, it means more people have decided to move them on at a price, because the price is variable on eBay, that people find attractive. So it's almost certainly the case that more Tudor Black Bays are listed on eBay than Tudor Pelagoses. But clearly, folk that own Tudor Pelagoses, like Tag Heuer Aqua Racers, are clearly inclined to list them at a more reasonable price that makes them shift. So the market making aspect of eBay, when reflected through this list, is quite interesting. You know, for Cartier to feature 3 times must mean there's a lot of wives that got presents of watches from their now probably ex-husbands that want to just move them on and get shot of them on eBay. So I'm not sure to what extent it shows the popularity of the Cartier tank Mr. Cartier versus, yeah, my daft husband, now ex-husband, got me this watch as an excuse to try and keep me. And actually, no, I divorced him and I got to keep the watch and I'm now flogging it. And then some other blokes saying, oh, yeah, I need to get my wife a present. I'll buy this. Excuse my cynicism.
Maybe it's just a bad watch. People just receive it. It's just the same one Bion Bleu being sold over and over again.
It's sold
thousands of times over.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Watches I'm surprised by the Pelagos, surprised by the Aqua Racer, surprised by those 3 Cartiers. When you compare, I would have thought the Santos would have been on there if you were just thinking about popular Cartiers, but clearly it's a market maker thing. And I think that's why that's why the offshores
These are
there.
probably the 3 most popular women's Cartier watches right now. That's probably the Ballon Bleu, as we know, has always been popular since it came out. It was never loved by the industry, but it's always been a crowd favorite.
Yes, it has. So I think that's why you see the offshore, because they take such a hit.
I think there's something else to be mentioned here. These are all watches that, for the most part, have been advertised heavily. So
very good point.
So Tag Heuer, when they have a lot of their ads, what's interesting here is you don't see Carrera, and that's probably because of the price point. I think when people are looking for Tag Heuer, they're looking for some maybe lower price point. And so if you think about it, these are probably like the 2 most desirable Tag Heuers at the most affordable price points. That's probably what you see here. Like I said, all the watches I've seen in display advertising somewhere, right? Even though the Formula One is not like right now the enthusiast choice, as we know, just given the price point, as David and you said, it is popular. So that's also there. You know, the offshore, it's not the most overpriced, Audemars Piguet. It's probably under list a lot of the time. So I think what you're seeing is not a lot of activity. The Submariner might be the odd man out, but most of these watches are not ones that go over list, right? We know the offshore, again, it's compared to the normal Royal Oak right now, it's not as in demand. It used to be much more demand, but now it's the normal Royal Oak, which is in more demand. So the less, like a less in demand model of an in demand brand is going to be popular on eBay. And I think that's a lesson to be learned as well. Hi, this is Ariel Adams, founder of aBlogtoWatch, with a message about eBay. I visit eBay daily and have been relying on eBay to learn about and acquire watches for more than 20 years. Did you know that you can now buy watches directly from brands or their authorized dealers on eBay? Timepieces coveted by watch enthusiasts from brands like Zodiac, Laco, Parallel, and more are part of eBay's Certified by Brand program. Here's how it works. Luxury names are partnering with eBay to bring brand new and pre-owned watches and other luxury accessories directly to you.
Certified by Brand includes a minimum 1-year factory warranty for watches and offers an unprecedented selection of new and used watches directly from the source, all with the peace of mind you can expect from eBay. Visit ebay.com/certified by Brand for more information.
Okay, Ariel, hands-on review, Carl F. Bucherer's practical Manero. Whenever you put something in like quotation marks like that, you know they don't really mean it. So Carl F. Bucherer's practical, air quotes, Manero minute repeater Symphony watch. Okay, Ariel, just how practical is a Manero minute repeater?
Well, how many watches that cost $400,000 would you feel more or less comfortable wearing on a daily basis? That's the type of practicality I mean.
That's the practicality. So no, I don't get it. What makes it practical?
It's conservative. It's not overly sized. It's legible. It doesn't call a huge amount of attention to it. It's like you have a horological addiction and you need that tourbillon, a minute repeater at your side at all the time, but you don't need to tell the world that, you know? That's it. So practical in the sense, or like it's conservative and it's a good taste, and no one's going to be like, hey, who are you showing off to? And they look closer. They're like, oh, damn.
This is the first Carl F. Bucherer you've got your hands on since Carl F. Bucherer's Rolex news. Any chat come through the ether while you were reviewing this? I assume you didn't get to take this home. I'm assuming you had to go somewhere where there were some Carl F. Bucherer people
that's
circulating.
They're used to those questions. Look, most of those employees, frankly, heard about this from the media. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, wait a minute, I work for who now? Now think of this. It is people who work at Rolex tend to have a lot of job security, and many of them stay in that job for a long time. Those aren't always like the best jobs in the world in terms of like being able to have your voice heard. But again, it's a very secure job, and people love working at a brand as amazing as Rolex. So all these people sort of like, you know, were working at one company one day and then woke up and all of a sudden they're now Rolex employees, and they're like, wow, I have a certain sense of job security that I never had before. And it's not just Carla Bucherer, it's the entire Bucherer chain, which is a lot of people. And again, I'm not saying that applies to everyone, but if you're a manager and executive, like, there's a good chance, unless you really screw up, like, you're going to be fine as long as you know how to keep your head within the Rolex way. So there's that. But in terms of what it's going to change for the brand, there has been no plans. As far as everyone knows, it's business as usual. This watch came out prior to the announcement, and the brand is sort of trying to reform itself. It's gone through various phases. It's sort of going to be a brand that starts at $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 and goes up. These watches, this is the standard limited edition, but the bespoke customized ones that they get excited about making cost about $550,000. So it's only... Is
that the professional life?
Only up from here. Yeah, the one with more water resistance or something. I don't know. No. So I think it's a really good time to be them. Again, they've been given no specific directive. I don't think they're really even allowed to talk about it, but I believe them. They're like, for us, nothing's changed except there's this, looming, maybe something will change, but no one there is dreading what will happen, right? It's a very good time to have been working at Carla Bucherer a few weeks ago.
Do you get the impression that anybody is either authorized or is ever going to use the line that they do in Tudor stores, whether they're supposed to or not, that they go, we're part of the Rolex group, so you're really buying a Rolex here. Do you think you can anticipate the first salesperson and Booker going, you're a bit dubious about this, but
I mean,
we're owned by Rolex.
Everybody who sells Carla Bucherer is very excited to say Rolex bought us, right?
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
that sounds, wow, Rolex bought you? That sounds cool. Like, that's a good pitch. They're not really allowed to say that. But look, ultimately we know that these are two completely different companies. They don't share any, design, movements, anything like that. They're two completely different watchmakers, even much more so than Tudor and Rolex. They just historically have not been the same company at all. So I think that if there was going to be a merger of the ethos, it would take years. I mean, many, many years before there would be any real intersection, because every incentive right now for the foreseeable future is just keep things going as they are.
David, what do you think of this watch? And what, if anything, within the Carl F. Bucherer stable would you ever expect Rolex to suddenly go, yeah, we'll have a little bit of that? In the same way, I suppose, that you could say, we've been speaking about the Pelagos, Tudor, well known for titanium, Rolex gradually getting into titanium. When can we expect the first? And basically what I'm asking is, when can we expect the first Submariner minute repeater?
I can't wait for that. It's going to be a pointless watch, but a fun one nevertheless. I quite like this practical Manero minute repeater Symphony watch that Ariel went hands on with. I really like the texture on the dial and the way that they position the hammers and the governor on the dial side along with the tourbillon. It's very frequently what happens is that these pieces are hidden on the caseback side on minute repeaters, and here basically everything that you buy a $400,000 watch for, if you're a watch enthusiast and not an investor, is a tourbillon and the minute repeater, and you have all of those on the dial side, so you can see them in action. You don't have to take the watch off, and it's just something that you can just gaze at and scrutinize and just look at and appreciate. So I think that's very cool. 400,000, well, it could be 250, it could be 450, it happens to be 400, great. I hope they will sell many of these. I've been to the Carl F. Bucherer manufacturer before, and the key takeaway message for me from there was that was the quality control was really outstanding. Everywhere I looked, I could see people just going the extra mile and taking a very close look at the different, not just the complete watch, but the different parts and subsets of parts and all the rest. And it's weird because we expect Swiss watchmakers to have like a high level of quality control and scrutiny, but that's not always necessarily the case. So as odd as it may sound, that was the takeaway message from there. And yeah, Carl F. Bucherer is much less on the map than Tudor. So if Rolex wants, maybe they can try something out with Carl F. Bucherer, as they do with Tudor in terms of materials and designs and whatever else. It could be a vehicle for really odd stuff, because Carl F. Bucherer is not as established as Tudor, and again does not quite have that level of attention that a Tudor receives every single time it does something new. So who knows? I think whatever they do, it's going to be a really slow start, and for the next couple of years, I don't expect much to happen from this newfound marriage between Rolex and Bucherer.
Ariel, does it sound nice?
It does. It has a really nice, clear sound. It's got some water resistance to it, so there's a trade-off between volume and having some water resistance in the case. But the sound is clear. It comes with one of those little wooden stands. We've all seen those. And you place the watch on it and you activate it, and it's a resonator. It basically amplifies the sound. So I think it's for the size. It is very well engineered. I mean, you really get a solid feeling out of it. Don't forget it's an automatic movement as well. It's got their peripheral automatic rotor that is great. It's we're talking about thickness. It was what is it, like 12 or something millimeters thick. It's wider. It's just over 43 millimeters wide, but I definitely think that David wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is too thick. I think actually this would be David approved.
Yay. And it gets a pass because it has a freaking tourbillon and minute repeater, which is very cool.
And automatic.
No diamonds, no bling, David. There's no bling there for you.
For $150,000 more, starting at about $150,000 more, David could have it double the weight with
so
stones.
Much bling.
Yeah.
Now
Solid
you have my
bracelet as well.
attention.
Yes.
That's right. You had me at bling.
Yes.
Rowing Blazers, times Bamford, times Tag Heuer Carrera watch, times is this a collaboration too far? A new release from this gang. Do we need a collaboration that has 3 collaborators on it?
It's starting to be like that rap music that always had like a bunch of people in the credits, and you're like, what did you all contribute?
What did you all do? Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, it's actually quite a nice watch. if you fancy a bit of color on your Carrera, but I simply would not entertain this because of the collaboration.
I want to know if George Bamford is happy just to go to the party at this point. He's like, I didn't have to do much, but I'm glad to be
He
here.
was a Tag Heuer fanboy, so yeah, they probably didn't need to ask very hard. George, would you like to put your name on this? Oh yes,
Yeah,
please.
I mean, look, it's good. Look, I think the success story here is Rowing Blazers. I've interviewed, Jack Carlson, the founder, a couple of years ago when he did his first Seiko. He's done a couple of those. There's been the Zodiac. There's the Tag Heuer. That's a fashion company that will eventually be acquired by somebody very, very large. And these are going to be cool and valuable, and they'll probably do their own watches at some point when he's no longer part of the company. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but like if you look at the trajectory of Rolling Blazers, it's going to be acquired by an entity that's at least carrying sized at some point. I don't know when, but at some point, just because it's on that trajectory. So it's going to have that type of gravitas, out there. And Tag Heuer sort of likes to be part of this. Still not sure what George Bamford's role in this was, but
George brings the
there
party.
to pick the phone. Like Tag Heuer just picks up the phone. Like, we're not really sure about this. George, can we put your name on this? Sure.
I mean, LVMH Group as a major, massive, hugely wealthy fashion house that occasionally buys things.
Yeah, maybe. I just think it's funny that it kind of seems like Tag Heuer is like, listen, Jack, we're so busy. Would you talk to George and design something? Give him some credit or something. And we just really don't have time to talk to you. It just kind of feels like Tag Heuer gave what is an important person from an up-and-coming brand a bit of a snub, Yeah. George is our outsourced design department. He has nothing better to do. You guys are cool, right? Go chat with him.
Go chat with George. Excellent. It is very nice. I'm not sure that the NATO goes with the, like, that's just, maybe that's what George contributed.
That's actually the Rowing Blazers straps.
Is that the Rowing Blazers? I mean, I know nothing about Rowing Blazers. That just sounds like
so here's the thing.
Rowing boats. But anyway.
This watch was inspired by a wrist-worn countdown timer that was basically a wrist-worn pocket watch. I don't see too much of a connection here. I mean, those numerals are the most distinctive things on there. Those don't show up anywhere.
Yes, which is a shame.
I'm just saying, like, if that's the starting material, how is this the end result? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. Anyway, go and give us your opinion. I actually, you know what I've not done in this article? I've not scrolled down to see what the comments say.
And my favorite comment is that I've read the brand as blowing razors and I can't get out of my head. Fast.
Blowing razors.
Like
the best part of this review was that the information, this is a good one, the bone clock. The best part of this review was the information about the limit of 99 pieces.
The snark.
Too many of them in the world.
It's
the blowing razors.
It's something nobody pointed out, and I'm not sure when Tag is going to get its sort this out. But if you look at the loom shot and just zoom in on it, you don't even have to go into macro level. It's just you just put it on full screen and you see that it's. I don't know. It's just somebody with a very shaky hand applied the loom. It's just all over the place. It's like I did it on half of the indices, and it's just it's really bad. And honestly, it's I don't think the Tag should allow. And it's
wow,
8,900. I didn't even check the price. It's almost $9,000 for something that looks like. Honestly, this would be unacceptable on a $900 watch. And I like Tag Heuer for many reasons, but this just blows.
Yeah. I have just done exactly what you suggested, which is gone to the aBlogtoWatch page on this, and we should not take a sudden upturn in the popularity of this page to do anything to do with the popularity of the watch, but zoom in on the loom shot.
You don't even have to go in.
Good grief.
It's just you look at it.
No, that's horrific.
Yes.
Okay, guys, come on. That was the sample.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe George applied the loom. Maybe that was George's job.
I like there's a lot of names on the dial. Carrera, Tag Heuer, Bamford, and Rowing Blazers. Oh, and Swiss Made. Everyone gets credit. It's like the UN of watches.
Honestly, that would be the only redeeming feature. If you look at the some of the pictures where it's where the lume is not on, it's like the first picture in the gallery where it's like this bright light shining down on the watch, and it's like actually a nice picture. And you look at the indices, they're destroyed, even the blue parts. And honestly, this has to be a sample. I have to like. It can't be the final thing because it's so bad. It is really bad. It's like,
you know what I love?
Okay.
From the very beginning of the internet to now, the internet's best role is to take someone else's work, look at it with a fine comb, and tear it apart.
No, you don't have to look at it with a fine comb. That's the problem. You could see this from like even if you have like bad near sight vision, you could see it. It's bad. It's so bad. If all the indices on all the Tag Heuer watches would be like this, it would be like nobody would buy one of these.
Okay, so, lesson 2, Tag Heuer. Next time, shoot one of the final pieces. You know? Yes. But this is what they do. They make a really rough early version.
No, next time use Photoshop, for goodness sake. Like, it's not like you couldn't correct.
No, remember,
this.
Tag had no time for this. They had to give it all to Bamford.
Next week's show, George talks back. We're going to leave it there for the full reviews. There's quite a few other releases, so we're going to rattle through 3 more with hit, miss, maybe. So first up, Garmin Mark Carbon Luxury Smartwatch Collection. Ariel, you're a bit of a fanboy of these. Is this still a hit?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting here is every single time in the past that a technology company like Garmin has released a new smartwatch product, there's been some technical upgrade. This has just been to say, and now our Mark collection, which is on generation 2, which maybe is generation 2.5 here, given this, now features carbon as a material. Titanium was a big part of it before. What we're seeing is a very rapid shift to carbon as an interesting material. I just wrote earlier about a carbon watch. It was a Luminox with their Carbonox case. And then I was writing just a couple of days ago about a Victorinox Swiss Army watch with a carbon case. We see carbon and low-end sport watches all the way up to very, very high-end watches. And now, as a material in luxury smartwatches, we see it. Carbon's a very dense material in that it's hard, relatively durable. It's not as traditionally scratch resistant as a metal, but some of the newer ones are very good. And because carbon is a dark material with a texture to it already, little blemishes could sometimes be very difficult to see. I don't know yet if I consider it a luxury material, but I think one of the best things that you can do is, depending on how you make it, as you cut it and polish it, you can get these interesting textures, these interesting grains and things like that. And, David was talking about being sick of thick watches. Well, what I'm thick of is just boring, solid surfaces that have no interesting design or any organic nature to them. I'm just getting bored of just like polished cases or brush surfaces, forever. So I think that what we're seeing is an interest in texturing and the artistic element there. And it's permeating into the smartwatch world. So I think there's a lot of interesting lessons here. This is going to be a lighter product. And, David, earlier you were talking about how you give the G-Shock a pass because it's so lightweight. Well, some of the better smartwatches today, as you know, especially Garmin, they're insanely lightweight. Even compared to an Apple Watch, some of them are like really, really lightweight. So I'm excited to see this in my hands and compare it to the metal one, because I think that the smartwatch industry, probably more so than the luxury watch industry, is going to get the practical super lightweight. You don't have to spend Richard Mille prices. But even the titanium and carbon mixed Garmin smartwatches right now are like ludicrously light given their durability and what hardware they have.
David, you've never owned a smartwatch, I don't think, but is this a hit, a miss, or a maybe?
I've never had a Garmin, but I had multiple smartwatches in for review. So yeah, this I've been enticed by these for a long time. I hope to get one of these in for review, maybe someday. Very cool.
Good. Yeah, this is a hit. I mean, never owned a Garmin, but this is starting to look
Rick, you're
like
a
the
Garmin
kind of
guy.
watch
You may
would
not
actually.
know it, but you are a Garmin material, sir.
You think you think I give off those
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
vibes, do you? Yeah, big Garmin guy. Well, Garmin, send me all your watches. But no, this looks cool. I like this. I'd certainly try this out. 46 mil, my kind of size. Yeah, love it. Okay. But hit miss maybe on the bi retrograde reservoir air fight chronograph watch. I'm a big reservoir fan. This is a bit of a departure from their normal kind of layout, but I'm quite liking this. I'm thinking this might be a hit. Gentlemen, David?
I quite like this one. They had the Sonomaster version of this, which I liked even more. It's essentially the same watch. I saw this by Retrograde Airfight at Geneva Watch Days, and again, it's virtually the same in the Sonomaster, but it has some beige, background to the subdials and a different play with the colors and stuff. And so my choice would be the Sonomaster, but I do like Reservoir very much. And it was the first time I met, the people on behind the brand, and it's always funny because you never know who's behind the brand, whether it's legit, whether it's like something somebody cobbled together or whatever. And, my first impression was that they take themselves and the project and the brand very seriously. And I was very, very positively surprised by the people behind Reservoir. So I look forward to seeing more of these. I haven't interacted with them since Geneva Watch Days, but it was fun to see that one. And yeah, this is a cool piece.
Ariel?
I definitely like these as well. For me, Reservoir has two things on their side. One, they know that they need to have dials that look different than other people's watches if they're going to have a competitive advantage in the market. So they definitely have succeeded there. Second, they understand the simple elegance of symmetry and what a good-looking instrument gauge is. The founder of the brand is an instrument gauge nerd himself. He is his own, first customer, and he's making things that he likes. So he has a strong personal interest in, analog gauges. And this is sort of him saying, yes, this is what I want to do. So here we have a brand that we admire because it is the manifestation of a particular person's interests. And those tend to be brands that we may not like all that they do, but we not like enough of what they do because there's one or two creative people there who are saying that's a watch for me. So right now Reservoir is still on a roll there. Just scrolling down to remind myself of the price here. Yeah, this is pushing up a little bit for them. Still a lot of stuff there, but sometimes I wonder, there's this sort of there's the person who's willing to spend a huge amount of money on an independent watch brand because it's like a talented watchmaker, doing their craft. And then there's sort of on the other end, there's like, well, I'll spend a certain amount on a small brand, but above a certain amount, I want like an attractive brand as well. And I wonder if the over $5,000 amount for a lot of people that's too much for me to spend on the little guy right now. So again, Reservoir is doing well, but they're rapidly getting into price territory that people tend to be more comfortable, again, going back to the eBay chart, spending on the Tag Heuers and Omegas, and Cartiers of the world. So this is interesting territory for brands like this. Maybe at a small number of units per year, they can do okay. But I suspect that they need to stay very, very humble unless they want to sort of significantly invest in brand awareness, which is time-consuming and very expensive.
And then finally for today, hit miss maybe the Breguet Marine Tourbillon 5577 watch. I think I'm giving it a strong maybe verging onto the hit. I just, yeah.
It's a miss for me.
I'm undecided. A miss. Why is it a miss?
I mean, there's so many individual components here are great. The movement is great. Okay, this is a really good tourbillon, and I can't say anything bad about that. My first issue is this sort of weird asymmetric positioning. I mean, look, we were just talking about a cool tourbillon with a peripheral automatic, and this is a cool tourbillon with a peripheral automatic, and it's done very, very beautifully. But I can't get behind this weird asymmetric thing they did on the dial. Like, it seems wholly unnecessary. The current iteration of the Marine has hour markers that I just can't stand. I just can't stand behind them. Like, they're just not me. I can't. I don't like those hour markers. And
are the hour markers loom filled?
They are,
because they're filled
but
in.
they look
Yeah.
very fat.
They are. It is loom, so it does sound. And does it look really strange in a loom shot?
just, it doesn't look good with or without loom. Like, it's supposed to be supposed to do it both ways, but I don't know that it's gonna look good. I mean, maybe it look good with loom. I don't know. This is a high quality watch, no doubt. Great movement. For this money, I don't know. For me, this doesn't do it. It's just too weird. It feels cobbled together and weird, and too many design elements that I don't think are that pretty to begin with.
David, are you coming to its defense, or are you piling on?
I'm a huge Breguet fan, so I would totally wear this just because I just love the connection with the Breguet marine chronometers. But I agree that these hour markers are very much a developed taste. They like a bit of refinement. Maybe if they had like beveled edges or something to make them a little bit more refined, because sometimes what happens with these like marine and dive watches and whatever else is that you have a robust exterior, but you should have like this little capsule of incredible refinement within that is safeguarded by this rugged exterior. And here, to some extent, the inside feels a bit bloated and odd, like Ariel said, because it's like the dial has this chin downwards where the tourbillon just protrudes from, and it even extends like the hour track and the minute track as well. And it's just kind of weird. It looks like a face or like a caricature or something. A bit odd, but it's very, very slim. It's beautifully made. I love the hands. I love the various textures and colors and all the rest of it. Altogether, it does not offend me, but it's not the $150,000 Breguet that I would get.
So unoffensively a maybe?
Unoffensively, no. Unoffensively miss.
Unoffensively a miss.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Good stuff. Well, that is our show for this week. Thank you all very much for joining us. We would really like you, even more than we already do, our good audience, if you were to send us in some questions. You can contact this podcast at aBlogtoWatch.com, or if you would leave us a review, some stars, and a little bit of written text as soon as you finish listening to this bit of audio.
Would that be great to just go into a Longines ad because they have all the stars on their dials? Okay.
Oh yeah, and now
leave us some stars. Speaking of 5 stars.
Speaking of 5
The
stars.
Longines.
Nice.
Well, maybe we'll just send them this episode and say, guys, don't listen to the first bit, then don't listen to the bit immediately afterwards where David talks about large watches, and then go straight to the end.
We just insulted your
and
sister
that's where
brand, then we liked your stars.
And that's where your advert could have fitted into this show. No, that's great. Thank you all very much for joining us, gentlemen. Much on this week?
Oh yeah, we have probably at least 4 podcasts to record this week, in addition to the weekly show, of course. And then Monday, another watch event. The release of my latest collaboration with Zodiac at the Feldmar.
And George Bamford.
No, maybe he'll show up. I don't know, but maybe we should just have a thing where people just put his name. Like everyone out there, if you're designing a watch, put Bamford's name on it. Just like a shout out to him, kind of like you're a rapper thanking Dr. Dre for something.
Yeah. I'm thinking April Fool. April's fast coming. Ariel.
I have a different idea already. I
think we need to have a subsidiary April Fool joke.
We could do that. We could do that. We could think.
Bamford collaborates with everybody.
Yeah,
collaborator.
He's the master collaborator. Anyways, yeah, Zodiac event at Feldmar on October 23rd. That'll be fun.
Cool.
And then more travel.
Excellent. Good. And David?
Yeah, just planning a bunch of travel ahead, some new stuff, just a lot up in the air right now, trying to settle everything.
Great stuff. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. Speak to you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.